Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Patrick Sieb, and I'm Director of Economic Development and Placemaking for Destination Medical Center Economic Development Agency in Rochester, Minnesota. Destination Medical Center is a public-private economic development initiative supported by the state of Minnesota to support the transformative growth of Rochester and improve the economic climate of Minnesota. And we are so pleased that you could join us today for day 4 of a week-long webinar series. This webinar series, Road to Recovery, is focused on navigating the path to opening key sectors of the economy in this COVID-19 environment. And today's topic, opening Main Street, retail and restaurants. Opening Main Street, retail and restaurants. Our digital dialogue is about what restaurateurs and retailers can do to successfully reopen as shelter-in-place orders are relaxed. And I'm joined by a professional panel for a lively conversation that will promise to be both inspiring and practical as we work together to figure out how to create safe, healthy, and compelling customer experiences that will encourage customers to return. Today, I'm pleased to introduce our guests, Andrew Zimmern, TV personality, chef, writer, teacher, and social justice advocate. You can watch him on his new MSNBC series, What's Eating America. Maureen Bausch, CEO of Bold North Associates. She spent 25 years leading the Mall of America and more recently served as CEO of Super Bowl 52 in Minneapolis. Svaar Vinje, owner and operator of Chamber Clothiers in Rochester. Jennifer Becker and Erik Kleven, co-owners of Bleu Kitchen and Oyster Bar, and Lizzy, Haywood, CEO of People's Food Co-op. As we begin this conversation, we'd like to invite the audience to participate. And so we want you to know that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the page where we would invite you to ask questions and, better yet, offer ideas or suggestions. We are inspired by the governor and his leadership that has been really using a ground-up approach to generate ideas and tactics and strategies to safely reopen Minnesota. We'd also like to ask you one question, again, just to give our panelists a better sense of who our audience is, a question that would help us understand where you're from. So a survey is going to pop up on your screen. It'll take you, shouldn't take much more than a moment to answer. This is helpful to us. Over this past week, we've had hundreds of participants, and it's helpful for us to know where they're coming from. Today, we have more than 200 people participating, and the number keeps growing as people join the program. So why don't we take a look at the results so we have an idea of where people are from. Great, so we're seeing we have a lot of people from all parts of Minnesota, including, of course, the Rochester area, and a few people that are coming from other parts of the country, nearby states, and perhaps other parts of the country. So great distribution. It's very helpful to know this. As we begin, I want to just kick off this discussion by asking Andrew just what it was like on March 16th as he was standing with the governor. Andrew, as you were standing with Governor Walz on March 16th, as the governor was declaring Executive Order 2004. And what was going through your mind? What were you thinking when you were standing there? What was that like? And what are you thinking today?
It feels like it was so long ago. And when you actually said the date, I was just shocked at how recently it was. It feels like we've all been spending
That's right.
17 months over the last 3 or 4 weeks. What I was thinking that day, my heart was pounding in my chest, not because I was nervous about being with the governor and I didn't realize I would have the opportunity to speak, or that the whole press conference was being carried live. And I don't get nervous about speaking in front of groups or being on TV. but I was very worried for our industry, restaurant industry. I was worried about seeing my child again. He's in boarding school in Utah. So as a parent, I was, you know, if things are shutting down and things were getting as bad as I thought we were, I was actually thinking a lot about my family.
Sure.
But I had just 2 days earlier shuttered one of my restaurants completely. And several that I'm a partner in had shuttered. Well, actually, all of them shuttered completely early because we did not feel it was safe to bring our employees in. We couldn't guarantee their safety. We didn't know what the coming weeks would be. And we felt better to be safe than sorry. And I come from the Danny Meyer School of Hospitality. My employees come first. If we
Right.
don't take care of the people who work for us, we have nothing to offer to the guest. So we had shuttered and subsequently had reopened several, doing community resource kitchen work, feeding first responders and so forth, people of frontline and essential workers, doing to-go business and other sort of pickup business. But I was petrified. I was petrified for my industry. And at one point during my talk, my eyes welled up with tears and I sort of choked up, thinking about how much food people have given both to me personally over the course of my career, how much food people had played in the role of getting my life back on track after I cratered it 28 years ago.
Sure. I
And
understand.
how responsive food people are to every type of natural or man-made disaster. Food people are first responders too. And what was running through my head was, will all these people have businesses to return to? If you shut a restaurant, because I was doing the math in my head for my own businesses, how many weeks can we last? How do we take care of our employees? And if we ever get to reopening, what does that look like? And now today, we have some ideas about that. And I'm both hopeful and have some trepidation about certain things, but food people are the most creative, inspiring group of makers I've ever been around. And if anybody is going to figure out how to survive, it's going to be food people.
And that's actually what my first reaction as you were talking about that, being petrified, but at the same time, probably at your core, knowing the chefs and the entrepreneurs that open and run restaurants are the most inventive and creative people. And I would say here in Rochester, some of the most immediate reaction, much like you said, Victoria is a restaurant in downtown. Their first thing that they started doing was making meals for school kids that were when the school lunch program was when kids weren't going to school. And I know Erik with Blue Duck and Jennifer, creative, one of the most creative businesses in Rochester, had to double down on that creativity. And Erik, just, you were probably watching that press conference and hearing it as well. And it didn't take you long to start reinventing. And I'm just interested in kind of the thought process that you went through.
Well, we decided that we knew it was going to happen and we were ready for it before we cleaned out our whole restaurant, emptied out the dining room, emptied out the back, emptied out the kitchen, just scrubbed everything down from ceiling to floor. And then we went into oven ready takeout. We're not huge fans of straight to go food that mostly doesn't travel well. So we created dinners, entrees, and food that you could, in oven ready, you put it right in your oven, you have a great meal at home. That took off really well for us. And then, excuse me, we went to, and then we just thought we needed to be creative, and we started our pop-up, 4-week pop-up series of different styles of restaurants.
So I think oftentimes, and Maureen, I'm going to ask you a question about this. Oftentimes it's been referred to that main streets are the soul of a community, whether it's restaurants or retail. It's the mom and pop stores, it's the entrepreneurs, soul entrepreneurs, it's the restaurants, it's the pocket parks, sort of the soul of any communities. It's Main Street. And you have, in leading Mall of America, led retailers through disruption over the years, and have counseled them about how to modify during post 9/11 or a recession, and then after all, as a leader of the Super Bowl, you've helped figure out how retailers could sell in below zero weather on the outdoors. So talk to us about disruption and what that can mean for success as a retailer.
Yeah, during the Super Bowl, we asked them to buy a coat, and we also asked them to leave it for us so we could give it to someone here who needed it, not take it to Florida. So that was a hard sell, but it worked. You know, I think it always starts with understanding the consumer and who are you. Absolutely, I believe that retailers and restaurants create the environment. You are the attraction. It's Mall of America. It was the sum of the parts. It was the restaurants, the retail, the attraction that made Mall of America great. But it always starts with understanding who's your shopper, who's your patron, what are they going through now? Where are they now? And that deep understanding will lead to creating a compelling reason for them to come back. And of course, safety is important. And you in Rochester are so lucky to have more medical professionals in your city, I think, than probably anywhere in the country. And they're your customers. So
Right.
They're a great asset in helping create that environment. I know they're helping people all over the world create safe environments. But, you know, again, as in the restaurant business, we have to get creative. We had to get creative after 9/11 to make people feel safe. We had to get creative to draw them into the mall during the Great Recession.
How about give us an example or two of getting creative right now?
Right
I
now?
know I know you're working with retailers and you're helping them be creative right now in this current environment. What examples would you?
Well, I've seen, they're not necessarily people that I'm working with, but I've seen some great examples of creativity. I know you're showing Jay McLaughlin right now. I think they're doing an unbelievable job. They're very much staying tethered to their customer, whoever it is, and they do it online, of course. But every once in a while, and you know that they understand where their customers are, they will make a call to a shopper, and an important shopper, and they will say, our founder, Kevin McLaughlin, would like you to have a gift card of $200 or $300. That customer feels very special, and they will be a Jay McLaughlin customer for the rest of their lives. It's that personal touch. And when they're open, they have a very hands-on experience in the store. You can order online, you can pick it up in store. They understand their merchandise. They have upskilled their sales associates, so they truly understand the merchandise they're selling and the customer they're selling it to. So I think they're doing a great job right now. I think Bachman's is doing a spectacular job. I don't know if you're on the email blast from Bachman's, but they're teaching people how to do a victory garden. And they're drawing people into a very safe environment. They figured out how to keep people safe in a garden store. And you can pick up your vegetables, plants, and fruits and so on, and then go home and grow it. So they understand where their customers are now, and they're making it safe for them to come back and enjoy the experience.
Well, Svaar knows where his customers are because I'm wearing a shirt that he delivered yesterday. So Svaar, tell me about, you are a high-touch business. You are all about personalized service. You're all about knowing your customers. Maureen used the term tethered, being tethered to your customers. What's it going to like for you? What's it going to be like for you to reopen, and what's that experience going to be?
We had a meeting this morning with Titan Corporation and the rest of the mall tenants, and we're concerned about offering, a uniform experience with when people enter, because we're a collection of all kinds of different stores. And we had a discussion about the mall presenting, a safe environment. In other words, when people enter the mall, they see a sign that says, this area is clean, this area is, we are providing guidelines to follow. And then also having uniformity between all the specialty stores so that there's a consistency. the client feels that there's a standard, and that's going to create a better environment, not only in malls, but if in downtown areas. It's very important for people look for inconsistencies to feel uncomfortable, and so that's kind of the major focus in retail right now. And then also the direct contact with people, because specialty stores are able to adjust. In other words, offering private experiences or specialty delivery or specialty interaction, whether it's via Skype or any other form of video,
Sure.
and we can
Sure.
share with clients.
Sure. So Andrew, something as far as talking about it, and I'd be interested in your reaction to this, is so one of the great thing about restaurants, especially small locally owned restaurants, is their uniqueness. That every one is different than the next. And as far as talking about something that we're hearing more and more about, which is the seamless experience, that there is a consistency across all platforms, if you will, all experiences, that that you're having a safe experience. So how do you reconcile this idea of the uniqueness and individuality of restaurants with the need for there to be some commonality around and some trust that regardless of what restaurant or what shop I go into, I'm gonna enter a safe environment?
Well, I think we've always had that. Regardless of what restaurant it is, and yes, there's a handful where there is no menu. You're just going in and eating the chef's tasting menu. And there are small little restaurants tucked away in great little neighborhoods and cities all over the country that have a blackboard on the wall. But in general, you walk in, you're greeted, you sit down, a menu is given to you. You look at the menu, you order, food is brought to you, you eat, you ask for a check, you're thanked, and you leave. There's always been a uniformed experience. There's always been an unspoken expectation in the industry about the generic notions of hospitality, what it means to, as Bria Savarin said, be responsible for a guest's happiness while they're under your roof, right? And that is something that all operators have invested in heavily over the years. I think what Maureen said is something that everyone has to remember, distilled down so simply and so effectively, and it's why she's such a great communicator, is that it is about listening to your customers. The customer is going to want to know, and Svaar is saying the same thing. And Erik mentioned the same thing with cleaning the restaurant. The customer now wants to know, is the place spotless? Has it been wiped down? As one of the things that is going around a lot of websites and a lot of chat rooms and in a lot of I'm talking is people referring to this idea of menus embedded into tables in an iPad that can just, the surface can be wiped. Disposable menus that are handed to guests in creative ways. Maybe they're tongs are used, because people don't want to see servers in rubber gloves. But at some point, how is that going to work? Are we going to wheel carts around dim sum style and invite guests to take the food off of a cart and place it on their own plate? Is that a possibility? I mean, we all are learning and borrowing from other things. If people know in the open kitchen that chefs and cooks are wearing protective gear, and you have that feeling as you walk in that, wow, they really are taking cleanliness seriously, and they're really taking my safety as a consumer safely, and they've emptied out a couple seats, but there's still a fun buzz, and there's still people enjoying bottles of wine, and this cart moving around the room is really cool. I can reach in and grab my food. That's something that as a guest I would be excited about. Erik, said something really, really smart about his pop-up that they're doing down at Blue Duck. And I just sort of inferred that would be food from different cuisines and different kinds of cooking going on, because everyone is getting sick and tired of the same 7 things they're making at home and the same 4 things that they order from the takeout spot. So I think having the skill set in restaurants to be able to offer a variety of things to consumers are going to come out of the gate wanting safety. They're going to want variety. They're going to want to know that the places that they go are keeping that type of mind, whether it's a clothing store or a restaurant. I think there's a lot of commonality there as businesses. But within restaurants, we're going to have generally accepted service structures, especially when it comes to health, wellness, and safety and how we clean. I've been working with several states on, statewide cleanliness plans for restaurants, so that there is a uniformity that goes along with them, as well as a national plan that a lot of restaurants are adopting. So within the, hey, we're all going to look alike the same way so people feel comfortable in our industry, within each silo, within each restaurant, within each store, people are going to have that unique personal experience that the individual entrepreneur is going to get to create for themselves.
Well, I mean, I think we in Minnesota are so fortunate to have somebody like you who's part of the national conversation. At the same time, we have people like Lizzy, and I'm going to bring you in, Lizzy, to this discussion, running a grocery store, the People's Food Co-op, which is an essential service that's never closed, that did never close, has not closed during this entire time. What are 1 or 2 things that you've learned that, because you heard Andrew say we're borrowing from each other's experiences, what are 1 or 2 things you've learned that you think any of the other panelists would benefit from as they're thinking about the experiences they're going to be creating?
Yeah, I'm on.
You're on, you're good.
So, good. What we've been discussing among our team is how the consumer and the co-op is really in this cooperating relationship now, not the kind of cooperating of our type of organization, but we are partners with the consumer on safety. We're asking for these things that we never would have imposed on people before. And Aaron's got some up on the screen here, but to really say that the service that we're providing is your safety, and your safety is our service, and we're asking you to cooperate and be part of that. Certainly anybody in hospitality, we have bent over backward for years to make the customer right and anything they want. And that is just not going to be the case because of the safety of our businesses, of our employees, and the safety of our public. We are in a position of saying no in the most friendly way possible to our consumer, and it really hurts. So those are important conversations for us to be transparent with each other about the challenge of doing that. We've got about 160 people working among our 2 stores. So the other thing I would offer as something we found very useful is to be able to name our priorities of how we're making decisions, because they have to happen fast, and it's not possible to tell everybody about everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we, from the top, named first it's safety, and then it's staples, and then it's service. And you remember during the crush of the first 3 weeks of this pandemic, it was really about getting food on the shelves and having enough people to stock it and sell it. So our focus was, is our staff safe? Are we getting staples out there? And then what kind of service are we providing? And that's really a sort of inversion of how we would have operated prior. In the weeks since, we have, as an organization, now shifted to the talk of our first priority in making decisions is still safety. Our second is cash. And what are we doing to create the runway to reopen fully to the kind of business that we hope to do later this year. And the third one is to pivot to meet new needs. So if we're using those as our format of decision making, we're finding we're using our time a little more wisely, and that's really just essential for our own mental health, because there's just not enough time to do everything.
So I heard you say this framework is safety of employees and customers, cash, because you need a runway so you can be around, and the pivot that's going to take place. Jennifer, another thing that I heard Lizzy say, and by the way, Andrew, I want to come back to you about that framework that she just talked about. I want you to react to that framework, and you too, Maureen. But Jennifer, something that Lizzy said that we've been hearing from others is, she used the term collaboration. What we've been hearing from other conversations we've been having is that perhaps for the first time, many competitors are saying, around this issue, we are not competitors. Around this issue of figuring out how to reopen, we are not competitors, we are collaborators. And is that something you're finding true among the restaurateurs here in Rochester as well?
Absolutely. It's one thing that we've prided ourselves at this point is developing partnerships with other local businesses. It takes a village, and we're fortunate to live in Rochester, Minnesota, where we do have a tight-knit community, where we can support one another and work together as a team. So I think the collaborations that we've started with other smaller businesses, delivery services with them, art kits, those types of things, and gear them towards family and family needs. Parents are home with their children all day long. So how can we take that weight off of their shoulders? So I think the partnerships and the collaborations are crucial right now.
So Andrew, that the framework that Lizzy just talked about, it resonated with me in terms of some of the things I heard you say and some of the things I've read that you've been talking about publicly, and just would like your reaction to that, and how does it reconcile with what your experience has been? First safety, cash to create a runway, and the ability to pivot.
Yes, the general economic advice for everyone in every business is be a squirrel, right? I mean, you just have to be on top of your dollars, because nobody knows really how this pandemic is going to play out. There are scenarios where it peters away slowly, and we wait for the next, and we learn everything we can from it and wait for the next thing, whether it's 2 years out, 5 years out, 7 years out, it's going to be something. So let's learn from this horrific experience. Or it could be rebounding and recycling through different states and municipalities across our country. We could have a full-blown worst second wave in the fall. Everyone's got different models, and all models are wrong. It's just that you can learn something from all of them.
Right.
So what do we know to be true? One, take care of ourselves. First and foremost, safety, health, and wellness, right? So call it what you want. I love that it's being named safety because it's universal for all businesses. Second, cash, absolutely, without a doubt. Know what your runway is. We're dealing with that in all of our businesses right here, and checking in with our financial people every single day to stay on top of that. And then the pivot thing is the most fascinating part of this. For those that stay safe, and for those that have even just a little bit of liquidity, what are you going to do to address the needs of the customer now? Because as Maureen was talking about before, what are the needs of the customer? And you have to understand the needs of the customer. The needs of the customer at Erik and Jennifer's restaurant, or Svaar's store, or Lizzy's market are going to be different June 1st than they are on August 1st or October 1st. Okay. So how do you pivot into those changes and anticipate what the needs of the customers are going to be? And that's where I think what the other smart thing that I heard Maureen talking about in terms of staying close to their customer, I think she was referring to McLaughlin, the store. Staying close to your customer means asking questions on social media and gathering information. At the very beginning of our conversation, you put up a little graphic and said, click a button, tell us where you're from, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have 200 followers or 2 million followers on social media. Ask a question of your customers. Throw something out there. People love to answer a question in social media and say, what are your biggest concerns? What would you like to see when we open? I know that seems so obvious, but so few people are doing it.
That's right.
There's a restaurant group in Chicago that is just been extremely successful, more successful than any other restaurant group in America at hiring back the largest percentage of employees and transforming themselves into a fully outfitted to go and pick up food experience, right? They're even liquidating, thanks to state law in Illinois, their reserve wines, their standardized wine list items, and they're even selling bottles of Pappy Van Winkle, I saw today on their website. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think they have about 75% of their employees back on. For anyone who owns a restaurant and is listening to this, that's staggering. And they're making money right now in doing it. And I asked the owners, I said, how did you achieve this? And they said, we have done nothing but talk to our friends and neighbors and customers nonstop through this whole experience. And it was such a duh answer, but it made all the sense in the world. And yes, nationally, I mean, prior to the governor's announcement, about 20 of us got together in an online chat and decided to co-found the Independent Restaurant Coalition. We're now 6 weeks old. We have 25,000 members. We have hired a PR company and a lobbying company in Washington, D.C., and we're focused on policy change as it relates to bailouts and federal response to this pandemic solely as it exists to serve the independent restaurants of America, a $1 trillion business with 11 million employees that, quite frankly, has been underserved by the bailouts in comparison to other businesses. So we're fighting really, really hard, and the unity and the sense of 25,000 oars all pulling in the same direction has been absolutely, absolutely fantastic to see everyone rallying around what we have in common rather than talking about our differences. And these are people who normally would not mix. The person who has the 12-seat little Japanese izakaya in Florida is on the same page with the restaurant owner who has 20 one-off concepts in New York City. It's an amazing thing to see.
So one of the common issues I suspect that independent restaurateurs are facing, and this one's going to be for you, Jennifer and Erik, is that for at least for the time being, the capacity, the business model built on 85 or 90% capacity, and I'm borrowing from some of the things you've said, Andrew, that business model now in a social distance environment where you cannot have as many people in the same space. How do you deal with that? How do you make that work?
You want to go, Erik?
That's a huge question where we ask ourselves that every day. Is it worth it? We're just trying to figure it all out. People have been in our bar. It's a great gathering place. It's kind of the heartbeat of the whole restaurant here. The kitchen's wide open. You got the two with the dining room in between. How do we recreate that same, feeling with 25%, 50% less people in here? And I'm probably guessing that there's not going to be bars sitting at the bar for a bit, is my guess.
I think that, at the rate that we're going now with our take and bakes and the different concepts that we have, Erik has more concepts than anybody I know, a mastermind when it comes to this. What we're doing essentially isn't broken right now. And if it means that when restaurants do open and we don't jump on that train right away, I think that's okay until you get to a point that people do feel safe, because we are a small restaurant. We seat, 67 bodies in our restaurant with an event space that we may have to open up to seat extra people. So I think all of that stuff for us is, there's just so much to do every day that it's hard to digest what are the next steps. But I think if we keep going the rate that we are going, I don't think there's anything wrong with that essentially right now.
So we have a question about outdoor seating, and Erik, you and I ran into each other on the trail the other day, and I asked you that very question. Is there a way to create an outdoor environment that perhaps is a sort of a mutually shared outdoor space for multiple restaurants, so that we can grow the seating capacity, and perhaps an environment that customers are going to be more comfortable in an outdoor space? And have you given thought to that, or Maureen, what, just also react to this idea of how to, with less capacity, how do you create the experience? People go to restaurants often for the energy and the vibe and the noise and the drumbeat of it. And if we were having less capacity, what's the alternative? What's the new experience?
Well, in the retail store, it's a little bit different. First of all, the good news is people miss you. They want to come back. I mean, I think if anything else, this has shown how important the activity of being together and shopping and eating out and so on is important to people and to their psychological welfare and connectivity. It also, when you get to retail, people spend significantly more if they come to your store than they do online. Might be easier to shop online, but if they're coming in your door, chances are that cash flow is going to be better for you at that particular store. So make it worth their while. And it's a very simple retail rule. You want to make your customer feel better when they leave than they did when they came in. And if you can do that in any way you can do it, they'll be yours and they'll keep coming back. Safety is absolutely number one for retailers, but it always has been at Mall of America or the Super Bowl or Cub Foods. If your customers aren't safe, you don't have a business. And so for all of us, it's always been priority number one. It might be different reasons that we were concerned about, but it's always more important. And even though we're in a very difficult situation, don't hesitate to expand your market. During the Great Recession at Mall of America, we partnered with the Vikings. We had never done sports marketing before, but it opened a whole new group of customers who were loyal sports fans who loved our partnership with the Vikings, and the Vikings were amazing partners. They brought celebrities to the mall. They brought, their players, etc. We did rallies, but you need to grow your business, even if, because of that point number two is the cash. And but if you get them in the store, they're going to spend more. And right now, if you read the research, 65% of people enjoy shopping and coming to restaurants and retail. So the market.
Well, we know people want to come back. We know
Yep.
people want to come back. I think people are wanting to be respectful of the guidance that's being delivered by the government, and so nobody's going to come back until there's this term that the hotel industry, when we talked to them yesterday, talked about. They said, maybe an emerging slogan, "We'll be ready when you are ready." What they're really talking about is that they're going to be ready when the customer is ready. That even if federal guidance or state guidance allows people to move about, customers may not be. And Svaar, how do you react to that statement? "We'll be ready when you are ready." What does that mean to you?
Can I jump in? I'm sorry. Did you call on Svaar? Go ahead, Svaar, please.
Really, I think it's dependent upon each store independently. I had one of the questions in the Q&As was which was more important, the loss of disposable income from customers or the reduced traffic flow. Well, having two completely different stores, my high-end store sees less clients, so the concern is being able to provide clients with product that they want to purchase in consideration with the economic changes that have happened. Andrew brought up that fact too, is asking our customers, what products do they want right now? I think that's an absolute no-brainer to be able to do that. And to be honest with you, I've talked to some people about it, but it's a question that I'm going to put out on social media right after this. With my moderate store, we deal with younger clients and higher numbers of people. So the concern is having that being a smaller store than my other store, is making sure that the number of people that enter the store are, again, safety, as Maureen said, is safety first. And it's different, I think, for every store independently, depending upon the size, depending upon the quantity of people that enter your store. We only see 20 to 50 clients downtown in our high-end shop, and can see 60 to 100 people on a Saturday at my wedding store. So you've kind of got to answer that independently and be objective about what the needs are for your environment, in my opinion.
So one size doesn't fit all, I think, is part of the message here. And Lizzy, you were going to say something, and I wonder if you could just pick up on that.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on the perception of safety. So because we have a store in Wisconsin, obviously we were following state guidelines during different orders, under different orders. One of those was stopping any self-dispensing product at all. And that order was lifted last Friday. So we had a chance to test the waters, essentially, to reopen our bulk department, not the salad bar buffet area, but non-potentially hazardous food, reopen self-dispensing. And we saw a good response that we could keep safe shopping habits throughout. What I appreciated about the way that Wisconsin is doing it, and I think that all of us can do this in different ways, is to separate in consumers' minds the food safety from COVID safety. We want to do everything to engender the perception that food safety has always been there, will continue to be there, that this is not spread through food in that way, and that the sanitation and safety practices that we're now talking about are different. So we're thinking of that in our public messaging as well, and taking any chance we can to show customers and to use their enthusiasm to show that it's about the practices of the consumer and store behaviors, not the food preparation.
That's right. And it really does come to the consumer. I want to get back to Erik or Jennifer. There was a question that I put on the table about this idea of the outdoor experience, and that people may be more comfortable as they begin returning to be in outdoor seating for restaurants. And I know you're not necessarily set up for that, but is that something you're thinking about? Is that something that you could imagine become part of maybe even a district-wide strategy?
Yeah, I think so. We have plenty of sidewalk space. I don't know how many tables we could fit with the social distancing, but I mean, it'd be a few. I think the customer is really going to decide. And, we talk about so much every single day, Jenny and I do, about different ideas. So pretty much everything's on the table. We'll try it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we're willing to always give it a try.
Andrew, you talk about the golden age of restaurants being ahead of us, not behind us. And I found that very compelling. It'd be interesting in you just saying more about that. What does that look like? So I appreciate your optimism.
Well, sure. Restaurants were in horrifically bad shape, in my opinion, over the last decade, despite appearances to the contrary. Over the last decade, with the economy booming, restaurants were able to open. 5 years ago, we had a sea change in how we view ourselves via a very large impact of the Me Too movement on our industry and in our culture. And a big mirror was held up to a lot of restaurants. And the restaurant industry, the hospitality industry, did something faster than any other industry I've ever been around or know of. Pivoted super fast into creating more equitable systems within their four walls. addressing pay disparities, addressing healthcare for their workers, and restaurants that took a lot of their profits. In fact, almost every restaurant group that I've been involved in as an investor or board member was taking profits, and owners were not taking it and putting it into their pockets. They were actually investing it in their people for a lot of reasons, one of which just being smart business folks. In a good economy, it was harder and harder to find cooks and servers and hosts and hostesses. And so you wanted to invest in people, give them a higher wage, make sure they had benefits. And we were really seeing a superb rise. At the same time, we're still not able to charge the customer what the food really costs.
Right.
We were still not able to pay everyone what they truly deserve to be paid. We still were not able to be more than a monetary pass-through business with an average, depending on what poll you look at, of anywhere. I mean, some polls have restaurants average, independent restaurants at 10% profit margin. I don't believe that. I do believe it is in the high single digits, probably closer to 8 or 7. It is a pass-through business. Let's just say 10% for argument's sake.
Right.
For every dollar that comes in, 90 cents goes out the back door. It's one of the healthiest businesses for the economy. And we employ so many people who are in marginalized communities. Restaurants are the #1 employer of returning citizens from jails and institutions, first-time job seekers, single mothers, second largest employer of immigrants. I could just keep going on and on and on. So while on one hand being very successful, lots of restaurants open, food is the new rock, everybody wants to celebrate at restaurants, millennials won't spend as much, but they want to hang out there. Lots of restaurants opening. It was a very brittle and fragile world behind the scenes, mostly because 20 years ago, restaurants were bringing 15, 18% to the bottom line, and they had a 2-month cushion. Now they're bringing 10 to 7% to the bottom line. They have a 3-week cushion, right? This pandemic, and I said this in an interview on MSNBC, I wish we had been able to take our industry apart brick by brick and put it back together the right way. Instead, someone came in and burnt our house to the ground, literally overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So now it was so fascinating hearing, I forget whether it was Erik or Jennifer say that they meet every day, talk about everything, and every idea is on the table. I believe in food people. I believe that Erik and Jennifer got into their business not saying, hey, we're going to make a lot of money and get rich. I think they got into it because, and I'm just guessing here, but I think it's true for almost everyone in our industry.
They probably proved that point too.
They saw the magic that happens when people are dining in their establishment. They see what it means to serve food to people and be a vital part of their community. They see the special role that people in the food business serve in our culture and how they support so many other industries. The supply chain of farmers and makers and growers coming in, the lives that can be created going out, the legacies that they can leave behind. It's a fascinating business that way. It's very romantic. It's like theater every night. And it is almost an addiction. People don't get into it to make a lot of money. No one says, I'm going to do this to get rich. So what I meant by the golden age is as we see entrepreneurs like Erik and Jennifer put their business back together with every idea being on the table and considering everything and taking, I think everyone's taking Lizzy's metrics to heart, right? Safety, cash, and pivot. I think what you're going to see is a more equitable system rebuilt. I frankly think we had too many restaurants that were open. Amanda Cohn, a New York City restaurateur, wrote an op-ed in the New York Times 4 weeks ago that said, there's 26,000 restaurants in New York City. Would anyone notice if only 20,000 reopened? And the answer generically is no. I mean, if it's your favorite little place down the street, are you going to notice it? Sure you are. But overall, did perhaps we have a glut? Are we now going to finally be able to deal with the tip credit issue and abolish tips forever in our industry as a national policy, perhaps? Are we going to be able to raise the minimum wage for workers in our restaurants? Are we going to finally be able, it's going to take some weeding off because we do have to listen to our customer, but are we finally going to be able to charge the right amount of money for that hamburger or that roasted half chicken? Because for 20 years, when you look at menu prices for a hamburger and for that plate of half chicken with a baked potato and a head of broccoli, whatever, it's only gone up about 6 or 7, 8% on restaurant menus in independent restaurants nationwide. Yet our costs in independent restaurants has gone up 100%. It's staggering. The big issue that faces restaurants, all those high fixed costs, rent and all of those things, I think we're going to see a lot of shuffling. We're going to see people go out of business. We're going to see those same people get back into business in a different aspect of the food space. I think food people are going to stay food people. I don't think people are going to leave the food business and say, I'm going to go be an accountant. And I really do believe when we look back in 2030 at what happened during the 2020s, I'm going to make sure I say this right, that we will have looked at a golden age decade of restaurants where the best ideas, the best reshaping, the most equitable systems were formed. I mean, look, just take a look at our food system right now. And I'll leave this here as a statement since, majority of people are in Minnesota, an ag state and somewhere where we're all still connected back to real food. The food system that we've built up in this country that had been centralized is now broken and failing us. We are all seeing now why people, like myself being one of them, and I will just, I've been talking about this for 30 years. We have to decentralize our food system. Have to. And we are seeing now not only the reason why, but the economic benefits of doing it, because we're seeing the economic problems with not having it be that way. I think we're going to see the same thing with restaurants. I think we're going to have a lot of systems that are going to remake themselves. And I'm hoping that we have the same bold leadership at the state and municipal level that we've seen for the pandemic crisis, pretty much universally around the country, with some exceptions. We have seen a lot of bold leadership from mayors and governors, and I want to see that working hand in hand with entrepreneurs, especially in the food space, on either side of that supply chain, and including restaurants, that we're able to remake this fair and equitable system, because we are not going to get it from the federal government, and I believe that we are looking in the wrong place if we do. But I do see scenarios where the 2020s are the golden age of restaurants.
So I want to use that as a way to ask sort of a lightning round here as we're coming to the end of our hour. A lightning round that what I'm hearing from Andrew is the silver lining, and a lot of silver linings that I'm hearing from Andrew. But what is a silver lining that you see coming out of this that will leave us with a sense of optimism as we close out this discussion? And Maureen, I'm going to start with you. I was just going to do a quick round. And what's the upside to all of this that we're experiencing?
Well, first of all, you're missed. So you're going to have your customers back. It might take a little longer, but I think this has been, and to Andrew's point, I think retailers are going to get a lot better. The omni-channel purchasing will be seamless. People are learning how to do it. I think some of these changes will be permanent. I don't think we'll ever go back to exactly the way we were, but I think the changes are going to be far better. It's purchasing the way the consumer wants to purchase, and you just have to offer that variety and show them a ton of gratitude. It's very simple.
Lizzy?
I would say a silver lining is the ability to slaughter any sacred cows that your business has. If there's something you didn't want to do or didn't feel like was working, now is the time to stop, because if it wasn't working then, it's definitely not going to work now, so just get on that and rip whatever band-aid you feel, whether it's service wise or structure wise.
Ara, what's the silver lining from your perspective?
Well, kind of the think small, shop small experience is kind of something I'm pushing on social media, and that that more intimate, more individualized customer experience is kind of what people want right now. They want things that are small. They want small gatherings. They want family. They want, and us as small retailers, you know, we can be pooled into that as family, as independents. It's we have the opportunity to create a better relationship with our clients, and if you're not, you're going to struggle. So remember to do that.
Erik?
I think community, the collaborations, I think a lot of what Andrew said about, I think it really opens the public's eye up to what the restaurant business looks like. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
And Jennifer?
I would have to say, I'm going to use this. I heard it on something I was watching last night, but the return of human connection. Small businesses working more so with local farmers, talking things out. What do you want to see if you are a business like ourselves that is smaller in nature with a menu that changes consistently? You know, can we start growing? Can our farmers start growing with us? Can we ask for certain things and create more partnerships? And again, you know, it's wide open with innovation and collaborations. Like I said, it takes a team to make this work, and that's what we're here for. And Andrew, you're right on. It made me a little teary-eyed, just of, you know, you don't open a restaurant to become a millionaire. It's not the concept that at least Erik and I have. We are very hands-on, appreciate our customers and that interaction with what we have with people. And that's what keeps us going every day. So it is an addiction. So yeah, I think off of what Erik said too, it's community.
Yeah, I think it made maybe all of us a little bit teary-eyed, Andrew, the sort of inspiration that you offered, and a reminder is it's what Maureen said at the beginning. Maybe a silver lining is a reminder that that you're missed. The customers want to be back; they want to be with you. One last thing we'd like to do as we're wrapping up here is we'd like to ask the webinar participants if they would respond to a quick survey we have that will help us understand what you valued most out of this presentation and what we can do better. So if you would just respond to these two questions before you sign off. And as you're looking at these questions, let me just say how much I appreciate the fact that we had such an amazing panel of people today. Lizzy Haywood, CEO of People's Food Co-op, that essential service has been functioning throughout this crisis. Jennifer and Erik, co-owners of Blue Duck and Kitchen and Oyster Bar, they overnight turned their business model around and continue to serve the community. Svaar Vinje, owner and operator of Nice Chambers, who is committed to being tethered to his customers and reopening in a safe and personal way. Maureen Bausch, CEO of Bold North Associates, but most recently told people how to buy coats in the middle of the winter and give them back before they left town. And Andrew Zimmern, TV personality, chef, writer, teacher, and social justice advocate, and inspiring commentator. So thank you all for being a part of this series. All of these programs have been recorded and are posted on our website, dmc.mn. And it has been, I think, a wonderful day today, and we so much appreciate all of you taking the time out of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.